Well, first of all, I think on behalf of everybody, I just want to say what a tremendous honor it is to have you here.
The honor is all mine. I didn't write Obama's speeches.
Okay,
I wish you could wrote Hillary's speeches. Maybe it would be in a
too
totally
soon,
different reality right now. Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, those of us who write jokes here, we hear a lot about the phrase brave gets applied to comedy a lot, often totally unfairly, and it really does mean a lot to have you here.
Thank you.
I want to start by, you've gone around the United States for the last several months, a full year, doing a TV show examining democracy in the United States. So I just want to start by asking you, how's democracy doing?
Well, democracy is doing fine. I mean, the outcome might not be favorable, but you're fine. I mean, we make a lot of jokes about American democracy and the process, but I mean, we come from the Middle East, so we're not in the best position to judge. But we make fun all of the same because that's what we do. And I think, I mean, you can say a lot about the process, but at least everybody is allowed to voice their opinion. And sometimes we don't like some of the opinions that we hear, but the only difference is that when you actually say them, you don't end up going to jail or end up losing a show or having to leave the country. And this is the thing about democracy. Democracy is actually about like listening to people that you don't like to listen to, opinions that you don't like to listen to. It's just like it's gonna be said anyways. So that's the difference. Of course, there's a lot of flaws in the system, but you know, nothing is perfect. And because there's a lot of, and because there's freedom of speech, some of the opinions that you might not have actually ever thought is going to exist surface, and they might even win an argument or elections.
And so let's talk a little bit more about the political culture. What did you think as you explored American political culture, as you were, you know, not just in places like Washington, but you went to both of the national conventions? Yeah. What was most surprising to you?
Well, believe it or not, I was not surprised. I found a lot of similarities, especially when I went to the RNC. The mood of hate and xenophobia was like pretty much present. And I was just like with some of the members of this lovely conference, and I was telling them, for 3 years in the RNC, all you hear was illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants, extreme Muslims, extreme Muslims, extreme Muslims. But what the actually people hear is immigrants and Muslims. Yeah. The thin line between legal and illegal, extreme and moderate disappears because it just like gets repeated so much. And because when racism and hate comes to your door, they don't look if you have like a praying grog, or do you pray 5 times a day, or even a Christian or Muslim. It will hit you just because you look different and you sound different, and we do sound different. And this was like the atmosphere that I felt, where people were like cheering for some of the most hateful things. I could relate to that from my own part of the world, when people were cheering for killing other people or jailing, or as a matter of fact, cheering for and promoting taking somebody's freedom, somebody's freedom of speech, rights to speak, because they are a danger to our country, a danger to our religion, depending on who's in power. So I found a lot of similarities. It's just like saying that someone is destroying the country, or basically spreading false news, like they created ISIS, or I had, for example, interviews with some of the supporters, and they were totally convinced that there are 35 to 40 ISIS training camps in the United States. And I tell them that why would the president or the FBI or the CIA let it go? It's like, because they're on it. They're on this too, and because, of course, as you know, you just got rid of a Muslim president. They believe that. And, and it doesn't matter because these were the people who were in the rallies and they're totally convinced. The same thing when back in my own country when people are convinced that every single country in the world just like gets up in the morning and conspire against us. And these are the same people who conspire against us that we receive military aid from them, which is a classical example of a double think. A George Orwellian reality that I always say that the only difference that we live in the novel 1984, but it's not even well written. So that's, so there's a lot of similarities.
And what about outside of the sort of political process, just throughout the United States? You talked about some similarities. Did you find any major differences that surprised you, or was it all one-to-one? You said
no. Of course there are differences. I mean, you have. I mean, as I said, you have an atmosphere where everybody is allowed to speak up, no matter how ridiculous what they say. I had really so much fun when I was visiting the gun shows. I didn't understand why people like their guns that much. I don't understand. I mean, it's a culture. I mean, they were telling me that we needed to hunt, and then I see the type of weapons there. There are some like Star Wars kind of weapons, and I say, how fast is that deer? Or how a lousy shooter you could be to actually use kind of combat kind of weapons. And I mean, it was fun. I was meeting a guy and his girlfriend. He's 19, she's 18, and he's already owning 14 guns. And she was like, oh, he got me a gun in my Valentine's. Like, that's fine.
You've never done that for anybody?
No, I never gave somebody. I never gave anybody Valentine. Period. I'm cheap, and I don't believe in Valentine. I don't bow for the corporate imperialistic ways of life. Which is funny, but. And the thing is, I mean, the only difference with this is that in the Middle East, the only people who are allowed to kill us are the militias and the government. So here you have a democracy who have the say who kills everybody. So it's kind of like everybody has the choice to take a gun and kill someone else.
That's very comforting.
We are even authoritarian in this. Only the government can do that to you.
So I want to start to move the conversation a little bit toward something we were talking about yesterday. When we were just chatting, the two of us, we were talking about how in the United States, traditionally there's been this sense that leaders ought to be able to make fun of themselves, ought to be able to have some sense of humor. And you said that is not at all the temperament of leaders in the Middle East, and you had some thoughts about why. Do you want to?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it is expected, even required from a head of state here that you should be made fun of, or actually he make fun of himself. When I was having my show, I had a very tough time asking political leaders, not just people at the high up, but even people in the middle, to come on my show, because they were always advised that they would look less respectful. And this, the same with the Sisi administration, Morsi administration, or someone like Dr. Mohammed Baradei. They would be advised not to come on the show, even though that we would tell them that we would rehearse it. Everything will be, agreed upon. And the reason is that many of the authoritarians in my region consider that you making fun of them or the self-deprecating humor culture is not there, because it is associated with being, not respected enough. It's because most of these regimes, whether military or religious, they depend on fear and fake respect. So you cannot make fun of your military leader or your sheikh. It is not acceptable. So this is the kind of mentality. We are a patriarchal society. From a very young age, we are told to respect and fear our fathers, our older brothers, our teachers, headmasters, bosses, and it goes on. And it's okay to respect, but this fact of like, you cannot break the barrier of humor. And this is why when I was doing the show, a lot of people didn't get the idea of sarcasm. A lot of people think of sarcasm as a way to put someone down. They don't look at it as a way to actually discuss important issue, even if it has to do with making fun of things. And this is like a major difference that I find.
Do you feel like your show and other sort of voices like yours have begun to change that in any way, or do you think that we?
Well, we had a window after the revolution. We had a window, and we thought that we could actually change things, and we were hopeful, and then we were hit with our own Trump, and so there was a window of change that we can actually change things, and people had the liberty of making fun of everything, and it was short-lived. And I know that your next question will be, so do you think satire is dead in the Middle East? And I'm sorry I jumped into that because it's linked to what I'm saying. Satire and humor is never dead. It's just like they're not allowed to exist in mainstream. People in their own private circle or social media, I mean, they are actually. Sometimes I wonder if I'm allowed to go back, how can I compete with these incredible talents? It's just like it's a difference between dead, which they're not, and allowing them to exist. Mm-hmm. But they are there, lurking in the dark, waiting to jump.
So tell me about what's something that you saw or a voice that you're hearing, even if it's not allowed to exist right now, where it makes you think, wow, this is really good. I'm not sure I could compete with that.
No. I mean, I'm talking about the general idea. I mean, now, like, if you have something that the president would say or an event, the memes and the comics, they just like, in a matter of 2 hours. It is so spread out. It is very difficult to pinpoint where it comes from. And this is the difference that I talked about yesterday in the banquet, is that for 50 or 60 years, this status quo of you cannot make fun of someone in authority is being brought down. People are now kind of breaking these barriers, these taboos that you are not allowed to question. And I said yesterday, whether you're in a military authority or religious authority, questioning is dangerous for them, because if you start to question, it means that you need accountability, transparency, and both types of regimes don't allow this. You're either a soldier in a military camp or a follower in a mosque. You're not allowed to speak back. And the younger generation are actually breaking these taboos and crossing these lines. And they are questioning everything, all the way from military to religion to everything in between. And this is why when people, I will digress a little bit here, because a lot of people say, when I speak here to people, it's as if that we only have two choices. It is religious or secular military. First of all, they're not secular. And people need to understand this. Military does not mean secular, right? It's not, meaning non-Islamic doesn't mean secular. And I'm repeating this because people always make the choice. It's either the extremist with the beards or the secular with the berets. It's basically the extremists with the berets, and they are as religious as everyone. So there are only chance, which is a very slim chance, is basically being secular, being liberal. But the problem is when any of these wings of authority, whether religious or military, are in power, and they feel threatened, the first thing that they will do, that they will consolidate with their enemies in order to crush the people, the liberal people in the middle, who are basically a minority. We are always the weakest link, and when they are in trouble, they will always unite. And you know, and maybe this is a kind of a different or a distant memory or experiment, like what happened in Sudan with Numeri, who was a military dictator. I mean, when he thought things were getting out of hand, he just turned it into a Sharia Islamic state. Just, doesn't matter. But and this is why, for example, for a regime like Mubarak for 30 years, he always kept the Islamists at check as like the obvious alternative, and he made sure that all of the liberal, secular alternative were crushed. So when he goes, there's no one else other than these people. So it's either me or them, and it's been the same exact techniques and policies that's been going on all around the Middle East.
This just gets happier and happier.
Oh, yes. Oh, you thought that you're coming here to have fun? No. I'm from the Middle East. I am depressed by nature, so yes.
So I do want to take you back just for a second to...
I just want to tell people something, because I feel everybody is... guys, don't worry. I mean, if you have a bad day, don't worry. Just remember that Trump is receiving daily intelligence reports. It's fine. I just wanted to give you some of my negativity. Have fun.
Well, so I do want to talk about this moment, maybe the beginning of this window you're talking about, where you're, you're a heart doctor in your laundry room,
Yes.
who's a fan of The Daily Show.
Yes.
And when you set out to start the show, did you think about this? I mean, right now we're talking very theoretically. Did you think, I want to begin to sort of challenge the status quo, or did you think, this is funny, I want to be funny, or both?
At that time, I was basically waiting for my H-1 visa to come from Cleveland. I was accepted into a pediatric heart surgery fellowship in Cleveland in 2010, and I was waiting for the papers to come. H-1 visa for all of you illegal immigrants, you should know this. And I wanted to leave the country and actually start my medical career somewhere, and I was so excited, and nothing tells you how desperate I was to leave the country to be excited to go to Cleveland. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, 2010, even LeBron James left, so it was not a popular place. So, and then when the revolution happened, I had a friend of mine who was a YouTube partner, and he, at that time, remember 2010, there was absolutely almost no original Arabic content on YouTube. It's very hard to imagine now, but there wasn't. And we were the first original YouTuber. He wanted me as an experiment, basically. Just like putting me out there, and it's like, yeah, fine, I have nothing else. I'm waiting for my papers. And when people say like 5 million, of course, my cat makes more than 5 million now. But at that time, 5 million in 2010 or 2011 was just like something unbelievable. And suddenly I had this offer from a television channel to continue. So when I did it in my laundry room, I didn't think that this will go any further. I thought, okay, this will be on the internet. I will go to Cleveland for a year, and maybe in a year somebody will discover me. I didn't know. I expected 10,000 views, and seriously, in a couple of months, 5 million, and everybody wanted to sign me up. And on the day that I was signing up, the papers of the H-1 visa arrived. And I had to make a choice. Should I choose medicine and the amazing message of healing young people, or should I choose money and fame? So I was a sellout, and I chose the money and fame. So that's the story of my cheap ascent into fame.
Yeah, that's your inspiring tale.
Yes.
All right.
It's quite inspiring.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that we keep coming back to with this is the YouTube element. I mean, without the internet, this wouldn't. I don't think you would have happened, right? You would be in Cleveland.
I wouldn't have happened. I would have existed.
Right.
No.
Yes. So do you feel like there is, compared to when you started your show, do you feel like the internet has changed the way that new satirists can surface, new ideas can come through?
Well, first of all, the internet basically made it kind of now, it changed the game for mainstream media, because it dictated what people wanted, not what like some old producer in a network would actually decide what to be produced. And that just didn't happen with me. It happened with so many people that came after the show. And now you don't, because practically you don't need to put a pilot. It's already been tested, and you know that people will watch it. The question is, will they continue to be successful when they go on television? That was something else. But of course it has changed, and social media has changed not just like the way that media was presented, but also how dissent and opposition would operate. This is why you may find the internet is actually the biggest headache in those authoritarian regimes, because they're buying off channels, they're buying off newspapers, they're buying off websites. But it is extremely difficult to control, and the only way to control it is to do North Korea style and just like shut it down, which is, you know, it will come with a lot of consequences in business and other stuff. And they try to stop it. They try to stop to do like some internet laws. They try to persecute people on the internet, you know. But it is very difficult to control. And just the other day, I went into a Twitter fight. Oh, you're following? Okay. With one of the biggest actually newspapers, and it's kind of like. Of course, with all the different, maybe the Huffington Post or the newspaper or news, it's huge, the biggest, and it's totally funded by the regime. And with one Twitter account, I just put them to shame, because they still use the same conspiracy theories of shaming people, calling them traitors, calling them operatives, accusing me and other people of receiving money to work against the special interests of Egypt. And I said, like, this has to stop. And through a Twitter account, I kind of shut them down. Just like the other days, I was actually, there was a television show that said that I'm here in the MEI, I'm being honored by the MEI, which, as we all know, is one of those institutes who spy for Israel against Egypt. So this is your image. In the Middle East, guys. You are part of the conspiracy. Welcome to my world. Yes.
Well, I think you're sort of touching on one other element that I wanted to talk about, which is the broader role of comedy and satire. Do you think that, you know, so now you have a Twitter account, you can challenge whoever you want from wherever you want. Would you ever imagine doing a show focused on the Middle East from a place like, say, Cleveland?
No. Never Cleveland. Well, a lot of people ask me, why don't you do the show again from abroad? And I always say, I will not do my show. Imagine Jon Stewart doing his show from outside. It doesn't make the same effect. The show was something, a huge production being done from the middle of Cairo, done by Egyptian talents in the middle of Egypt. And we're talking about stuff that matter to people on a weekly basis. If you take these elements out, it just becomes another vlog that people will lose interest after a while. It doesn't make the same, like you cannot be, you're gonna be viewed as a future from outside who's just throwing rocks. Now I'm speaking my mind, but it doesn't have to be through the show. And I think one of the things that we fight back is that all of those people who had to leave is to become successful in their new habitat, because when we become successful, people will know our stories and will actually be more attentive to what's happening, and maybe try to put some pressure to alleviate some of the injustice that's happening to so many people who stayed behind.
And so you don't imagine yourself going back to Egypt? You imagine you think about your future here?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, so it's a sunny, nice place. So.
Well, so and, talk with me a little bit about that. What are the, you know, we think a lot about humor getting lost in translation.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're doing comedy in a whole new language than the one you had your show in. What's that like?
It's very difficult, very challenging at the age of 42 when you come here and try to actually speak to a different kind of audience population with their own language. That's tough, because I'm not just doing it, I mean, Arabic is one language, English is a second language, humor is a totally third different language. So, and within that there is accents, there is timing, and there is stresses. a lot of things. So it is difficult. And also you had the challenge of being accepted as an outsider to speak about matters in a country that's not yours. So it is very difficult, and it is very challenging, and a little bit stressful, but hopefully it will work out someday. Yes. And I can always use the excuse if I said something inappropriate. Oh, English is a second language. No hablo inglés. Okay.
So we'll open it up to.
Can I say something about this?
Please.
Can I say that? Just one thing. Just something happened in the RNC. So after 3 days of very negative energy, and as Trump ended it with his last speech, me and the team, the television team that was in Fusion, were extremely frustrated. I mean, that's before, of course, the DNC, when they kind of competed to put anybody who's not white on stage to cancel out the effect of the RNC, which is great. It's like, oh, he's white. No, just Chelsea and her mom. And it was after we heard Donald's speech, we were very upset, and we took the elevator from the arena, and the operators are like, "We're going down, people." It's like, "Yes, we are." And then everybody in the elevator looked at me, and I was surrounded with those very white, pink, angry Republicans. You know, they have a way of dressing. They have this, I know, khaki jeans, and always a pink tie. I don't know why, and they're pink. Sorry, sir. And they looked at me, and that was like after 3 days talking about immigrants and Muslim, and I'm both. And I looked at them and I said, "No hablo inglés, señor." They laughed, with two people looking at me angrily, but we ran out of the elevator.
Well, I think that may be the most hopeful note possible
Yes,
to move things to take questions from everybody here. So why don't we open the floor up, and if anyone has questions for Bassem. Sure, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tali Lind. I'm with USAID, but I'm here in my personal capacity. I have a question.
You're saying that they're not sponsoring your ticket? Damn, they're cheap. Sorry.
So, yeah. So
Yeah, talk to me more about your
So my question is about whether, are you potentially part of a wave of comedians that are coming from outside of the United States to help us reflect? So you see Gad Elmaleh, who is French, Moroccan, Jewish, who's come here. He's in New York trying to, make his way in the scene in New York. You see Trevor Noah, who has, he's totally South African. He's making a lot of very interesting comparisons between what's going on here and African leaders. We have you. Are we seeing something that Americans now, the only way that we can really understand ourselves is that we need outsiders to help us? Or is this an anomaly?
You are giving us too much credit, and you're not giving yourself enough credit. I don't think that you guys need people from outside to understand yourselves. I think you have wonderful comedians here. You guys have actually invented stand-up comedy. You guys have actually invented political satire and made it mainstream in television. We were basically inspired by you. So it's kind of, it's too much credit that we should not take. Maybe we just came because the money here was better. It's just like, well, everyone has its own reason to come. I came because I had nowhere to go. Jad al-Maleh is a great friend with his friend with Seinfeld, and they kind of like, he's helping him getting. I mean, America is a great market for comedy, and I think it has always been like this. America has always been receiving people from other countries. I mean, you yourself call yourself a nation of immigrants. Why comedians be any different? It's like you had waves of engineers and doctors and political analysts, so why not comedians? So it is not intentional, and it is not because Trump won. just, you know, maybe they're coming here again for, because I think, and I think another reason is that comedy is becoming, and especially political comedy, is becoming more of an international issue. And the world is much smaller, and now people can speak about stuff in one country that could be totally relatable to another country. And the right wing is rising everywhere, and we're all going to be fucked soon. So maybe this is a reason why people are finding themselves more relatable. So thank you for giving us the vote of confidence, but you guys, you're it's a great country, and we appreciate being here.
Let's go down here, and then we'll...
I'm Indira Lakshmana, and a columnist for the Boston Globe. And I was just thinking about how we've spent all morning with these terrific panels of experts formerly served in government who, talking about what is the Middle East policy from the U.S. is going to look like under a Trump administration. So I'd love to get your perspective as a satirist. What sort of words of wisdom or humor can you give us as we look ahead to what a Trump administration is going to look like for Middle East policy? What words of wisdom can you share?
The day that the foreign administration gets a word of wisdom from a satirist, you're in deep trouble. I don't have all the answers, guys. I'm just one person who's been on television a few times. So I don't know what will Trump would do. I think he's pretty much unpredictable for his own people. It doesn't look good with the people he's surrounding himself with. However, it seems that the rise of Trump and whatever he represents is basically welcome to many places, by many places in the Middle East, which is crazy. That we are basically, some of us are actually siding with someone who's, and his team basically are racist against us, because they, in their mind, they think that, oh, he's anti-Islamist, so he's going to get rid of our Islamist enemies, which is crazy. They have this, I mean, the mental gymnastics that's been practiced in the circles of Arab politics is just like crazy. A lot of people actually believe that if Hillary would have come, she would have funded the Muslim Brotherhood, and they would actually push them to come to power. The same people who believe that we have captured the commander of one of the vessels of the American Sixth Fleet and we have defeated America. Yes, that was on television. And those people think that since he's anti-Islamist, he's going to come and save us. So it is crazy. I mean, if there was I don't know if Trump would actually listen to a word of advice from someone like me. So I don't know. I mean, just be fair, be just. And this is something I would say to Trump or any other American administration. The problem with the American administration, whoever comes to power, they just want things to move smoothly for the 2.5 years of the administration, because he's campaigning for the rest 1.5 years. None of them actually have the courage to make any drastic changes because they don't want any trouble in their 4 years of administrations. So what they want is just like to patch things up. Just like, we know he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. We don't want any trouble. So, and unfortunately, it's going to continue. Whether it was Trump or Hillary Clinton, everybody is there to be elected in 4 years, and nobody is actually going to make any difference, because whether they will gonna actually keep a military dictator or a religious dictator, whatever works for us, that doesn't make us a headache until it explodes and it gives everybody a headache. So I don't know if I could actually give any advice. Thank you.
Let's go over here, and then we'll do one of these.
Thank you very much, Bassem. Munzir Sulaiman, Bureau Chief of Al Mayadeen TV, based in Beirut, Lebanon. You just said that America is great, and that was a slogan for Trump, as you know.
Well, I believe that every country is great, so I said America is great, and it was great before he put it on a hat.
Yeah. Well, that's my question, you know, from your perspective, living in two cultures, two different places, he wants to bring America great again. Can you tell us, from your perspective, when was America great and stopped being great? Under which president?
I don't know. That's why it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Then what's your take on the issue of popular vote in the United States? We were talking about the model of democracy that...
You're asking me stuff that guys, I am a guy.
No, no.
I cannot change I am a guest in this country and I want to keep my green card.
Well, we cannot find from the politicians' answer, so maybe from you.
Well, here's the thing.
The electoral vote, compared to the popular
I
vote.
understand the argument behind the electoral vote because they say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm new in this country, but they say that if we just do it popular vote, that some of the smaller population states will not have funding. I understand that, but also it is confusing because some of the states that are always blue, like California and New York, were always red, like Texas. What is the point of the other party voting? California will always be blue, Texas will always be red. Why would a Republican or a Democrat vote in a red state or a blue state? I don't know. There was a reason why the founding fathers chose that. I hear a lot of complaints. It seems that 5 of your elections ended with popular vote and it went to the other guy. I don't know. My only thing is that it's just like the whole thing about canceling out like 49% of the votes in a certain state because you got like 51. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and it seems that everybody's complaining. So you guys figure it out. We are still in the stage of like, do we have a vote? So, yes.
Let's go over here and then there, and then maybe we'll try to get a few from the back.
Can I say something about America Great Again? So I was interviewing a guy in one of the Trump rallies, and he said the same thing about the whole mentality, America Great Again. It's like, why are you voting for Trump? And he said, because he's going to make the military great again. And I said, how many more countries do you want to invade? The whole thing about making something great again. We've heard this when the Islamists came to power and they said making Egypt Islamic again. When the hell wasn't it Islamic? The whole thing of just putting the identity politics that we're great, we're better, we have to be Christian again, we have to be Islamic again. It's just it's empty. It doesn't mean anything. That's why logic ceased to exist in this. That's why when people say, oh my God, you see Hillary Clinton won the 3 debates. According to who? To someone with half a brain? Or someone, with all due respect to any Trump supporters, or as someone, or people who just are already gonna vote to Trump to whatever. It doesn't matter, and or someone would say, this is the statement that will end Trump campaign. How many times have you read that? Yeah. And it didn't make a difference. He was riding on the identity politics. He was speaking to people that it doesn't matter, they're not going to change their mind. So there are people that will vote Republican. The evangelical vote went to Trump, although that he is totally unreligious. It doesn't matter. He rode on a platform, and people voted for him. And logic doesn't have a place in this vote. And I have seen this firsthand. People know that a certain leader is not making any sense, but he's the one who's going to protect us. How, when, why, it doesn't matter. This is what they believe.
Hi, I'm Marisa Lino. I have a practical question for you.
Practical.
So is this comedy gig in Los Angeles a full-time job, or have you considered going back to medicine and
comedy gig in Los Angeles? It's not in Los Angeles yet. Oh. I live in Los Angeles. I travel around.
Okay.
Yeah, but to answer your question, no. I'm not going to medicine, because if I went to medicine, would I be here on stage?
Why don't we try to take a few from the back, and then we'll see if we can get back front. So maybe back there. And Kate, how are we doing on time? Oh, great. All right. We got plenty of time.
Hi, Bassem. Marwa Maziad, University of Washington. I'm an academic, but I will ask you a question regarding the comparison. Once you evoke the Egyptian comparison in any context, I found myself, when I do this comparison of the Morsi versus Shafiq moment, the polarization moment before in the elections of 2012, there was some resistance even from within the US to see any similarity anywhere else in the world. This idea of American exceptionalism, that it's uncomparable, whatever is happening here cannot be compared. Do you see that that's an impediment to a conversation that is of the elements that are happening in both countries or all over other countries as well, especially with the question of humor?
No, I mean, I don't think that people here, people who speak about the American exceptionalism, they exist. But there's a lot of people who actually are open and receptive for seeing the similarities. It really depends on who you're speaking to. The same thing when you speak to people in Egypt and they think that we are unique and whatever applies to the world does not apply to us. You find people that say like, no, it's wrong. Whatever applies to the world can apply to us because we're all humans and we have the same impulses. So I think exceptionalism everywhere it's the language of people who doesn't want to see further than the borders of their own country. So yeah, I think everything is comparable. I do disagree that this is a Shafiq Morsi moment, but that's a different conversation.
Let's go right next, you back there, and then we'll bring it back up. Go.
Hi, my name is Casey Page. I'm a senior at the George Washington University. It's kind of an exciting moment for me. I wrote a paper on you when I was a freshman, so rounding out my academic career in a great way.
I mean, you know how threatening it is when someone like, yeah, I wrote a paper on you.
No, I promise it was flattering. It was flattering.
I lost you at paper, but anyway.
What was the thesis of your paper?
It actually has to do with my question. I was looking at the purpose of satire and when it is most powerful. So in regards to my question, do you think that it was sort of the right place, right time for Alberta Meg, or do you think that it would have been more successful? So was the revolution a factor, do you think, in the program's popularity?
Well, of course. I mean, the revolution was it opened the door to amazing talents and amazing initiatives that we never have thought that was be possible. But here's the thing about right place and right time. Because this is the same exact argument that the people who don't like satire use. It's like, oh, we like you, but it was not the right time. Egypt doesn't need satire now. And it is their way of saying that we do not need free speech and let us practice our tyranny without being disrupted. There is always a place and a time. Because if there isn't, who decides that there isn't? The one who decides it isn't, it's never the people, it's the authority. So if this is a question that it actually should be asked for the authority, not the people who are practicing the right of free speech. Because it's the authority who always have a problem of having satire. So they're the one who is deciding that's not the right time.
Gosh, let's go. We'll do 1, 2, 3, and then kind of do a circuit that way.
الساتاير اللي هو السخرية يعني. السخرية يا اختي ايوه هو ده. تعالي بس قولي لي لو انت قلتي لي انا هقول لك على طول.
Hi, I'm Hani Eldib. I'm an Egyptian American. And I noticed that after President-elect Trump won, that I became very satirical. I couldn't deal with reality. So for example, I started to call him El Ma'allim Koromba. And I started to call Putin Abutina. And I'm wondering if you can help me understand what's happening to me. You know?
We are going to have a group therapy tonight that I'm sure everybody will come here and share. This is the catharsis, you know, you just like, you know, you're dealing Well, I think you're in stage 1, denial. And I will meet you in stage 5 when you accept. Maybe stay away from you when you are in anger. But otherwise, you're fine, I think. And I think you'll use these techniques a lot for the next 4 years.
Yeah, let's just go.
Hi, this is Amr Fouad, an Egyptian American, computer engineer and writer.
What the hell were you doing recording the whole session?
I know.
You know,
Well,
you know that this video will be deleted, right?
Well, I can't delete it.
It will delete it. It
Okay.
will be deleted, yes. I've been noticing you.
Okay. Well, that's my honor.
So you will delete it.
I will delete it. Okay.
Or you can give me your phone and never see it again.
Well, that would be even
All
better.
right, continue.
Almost 7 years ago, I was one among the millions of Egyptians in Egypt, where I participated in the Great Egyptian Revolution. Obviously, things right now are not going through the hopeful direction that we wanted. What would you say to those young Egyptians, apart from immigration? Just please, a lot of
It is a
people.
generational issue. And because we have not seen many revolutions in our lifetime, we only know about revolution from textbooks. So we only see the beginning and the end in a paragraph. Revolutions are not easy, and they take time, and we just happen to be in the middle of it. And I'm sure that people who have been through the American Revolution, the French Revolution, had their own moments of despair and hopelessness. And I know that sometimes it's difficult in the age of tweeting and Snapchatting that everything takes 6 seconds, that you would see the end as fast as you should or you want, but it doesn't happen like that. It takes time. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, 1776, you had your Declaration of Independence. For 12 years in Washington, you had militia wars because you were fighting on writing the Constitution. This is history. We have only been 5 years. 5 years is nothing in history. Maybe we just have done this not for ourselves, but for the coming generations. Maybe we will not see it in our lifetimes. Maybe 2 generations down the road we'll see it. But the alternative is not just to sit there and just despair and say like, oh, it's not going to happen. This are just like a process, a procedure of history, and nothing could just be stagnant because it's too hard. Thank you.
My name is Barbara Pladesher. I'm a journalist with the BBC. I lived in Egypt in the 90s, and it struck me at the time that there was one similarity anyway between Egypt and America, and that both of them thought they were dunya.
Oh, yeah. Well, one by size and military and economic power, and one just like by age. We're just older than you guys.
This is true. But I have a question actually about your life here. You said that comedy was becoming more international. Working as a comedian in America, can you just describe how you deal with the job maybe differently or the same as in Egypt? How do you
well,
cope with that?
I don't know if you were here when I said like the difference in just not just the language, but the references. And I was telling him that like, you know, English is a language, Arabic is a language, humor is a third language. It is a challenge, and I am learning every day. And it is a process. I don't know if I'm going to make it, if I'm going to be successful in this new habitat, but you try. I pitch ideas. I have some projects coming up, and I hope I'll become successful. It's a very tough competition. This is Hollywood. This is different, and you try your best.
And you get the most resonance, I guess, with your political satire. You don't move beyond that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I prefer that. Because I think political comedy or political satire really crosses borders. People can relate to that. Because I don't even like call myself a comedian, because comedians they're much more talented and funnier people than I am. I think with political satire, it is more of a thoughtful process. It's more of a message that I can relate to and I can actually speak about more. Not just empty jokes. And I hope that will resonate with people. Thank you.
why don't we go, we'll keep doing our circuit up there, and then we'll,
Oh, there's already someone here instead of you coming back.
oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Hello, Michael Hudson from Georgetown University.
A lot of Georgetown University here.
We met at Harvard actually
I
last
know.
year.
Why aren't you guys inviting more often? All right. I'm just kidding.
My question is, as you look around the region today, are there places you see where political satire is not dormant, or is it completely silent?
No, it's not. First of all, even in Egypt, the fact that it's not on mainstream media doesn't mean that it's dormant. It is there. It's just not allowed to be shown. So, of course, satire will never cease to exist in Egypt. It's always going to be there. However, there are some countries, like Tunisia, like Lebanon, all the time, has always been very active. And I have to say, like, there is a show, I was inspired by an Arabic show in Lebanon way before I did my show. It was, if you're Lebanese, CNN, Salam Za'atari, and I always say this all the time, and I give him credit. And they actually have a totally different job, because they have all of these sectarian jokes, which is like other countries in the region will never even dream of making jokes about that. And they do it. Lebanese comedians have a very old tradition in political satire, and Tunisia are doing. I've been in Tunisia for the 4th time just a couple of weeks ago, and yes, they are thriving. So it is never dormant, even when the places where it's more difficult, like Egypt, it's there, but it's just not allowed to expand and thrive. Oh, Kate. Oh, Kate.
It's a softball question.
Oh.
Just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now, the comedy shows you're doing around the country, and also you've got a big project coming up in the spring that you were telling me about.
So I have a book coming up in March. It's called The Revolution for Dummies, and it's going to be published soon and released in March. And I'm doing this one-man show which I'm trying to develop with American producers and directors, and also on television side, where I have a couple of ideas that I'm pitching to some networks about media and politics, that it might be kind of a new beginning for me here. So you never know. Again, it's just like, you know, it's a tough competition, and meanwhile I'm in I'm in California. And I always say, you know, I drive a Prius, I'm vegan, I just need to be gluten intolerant, and I'll fit right in.
Let me actually ask you really quickly about your book. First of all, I feel the obligation to ask, can we pre-order your book yet?
Yes, yeah, it's on Amazon. So if you go to on Amazon and you write Bassem Youssef, it's there. And the cover is funny, it's my idea. So pre-order, it's already available for pre-order. You get it for a great price, and with a platter of hummus.